Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, right? We're still morning. Yes, good morning. I don't have a sense of time. My name is Ava St. and this is Sunday Sessions. I am so glad to have you with me today. If you are here just now, I am going to open up with a bit of prayer. Before I get started with that, today's topic, we are doing healing through truth, or healing our relationship with truth, so that we can live a more balanced and centered life without having to worry so much about going through life's ups and downs. There's some tricks and hints and things that I've learned over the past for myself, and I am going to teach you what I've learned. So there it is. On my card here today, we'll be using Manzo B's tarot deck. Wow, that was on the bottom of the deck. Well, here we go, talking about transformation, right? Manzo B's, I think it's called African Heritage Tarot. I don't know, I have to look it up. I'll put the link in the box. And then we've got our deck, Priestess of the Light by Sandra Ann Taylor. So those are the two that will be coming from today. And then I've got a presentation for us to kind of like go through. I don't want to say presentation, but it's just some visuals to kind of help you all understand what I'm talking about and where I'm coming from. So I'm going to do a quick prayer. Center ourselves, center myself. So just to say, Holy Spirit, we are here and we are grateful. To our gods, guides, guardians, ancestors, we are also here and we are also grateful for what has been and what is to come. Give us the words that will heal and transform us this morning, so that we may ever live in love and wisdom. Ashe. All right, so that's that. I'm gonna hit this live button. I don't think I've done this. It's supposed to be on Instagram, not quite yet. So again, I don't have any books today specifically that we're gonna be coming from, but we will be coming from, like I said, these two tarot decks, and talking a little bit about the Wheel of Fortune specifically, and talking about how to, like I said, go through life's ups and downs. I'm going to present here very quickly. Beautiful, and I'll share my screen. Here we go. All right, there we go. So now we're all done there. And here we go. So here we are, we're talking about healing our relationship with the truth, finding our balance, recognizing spiritual truth. You know, a lot of times, I think we had a few questions last week that's like, how do I recognize a bad spirit? How do I recognize a good spirit? How do I, basically discern what's happening in real time? And a lot of that has to do with being present in our bodies, really. It's so much of the time we're actually out in the future, or we're in the past, or we're out in some daydreamy space. And a lot of it has to do with practicing being in the body, but we'll get to that as well a little later. I'm going to check and make sure that I am and where I need to be. There we go. Good job. All right. So here we go. This is going to be a doozy, but it's important for us to kind of understand the background of what's going on, so that we can get to the juicier bits. Hey, Julie, how's it going? It's nice to see y'all. It's good to see you guys on Instagram. So basically what's going on, I don't even know how this works on this side, but we'll get to it. So the old way, right? So when we're talking about the old system, everybody's like talking about killing the patriarchy or rebuilding it, or whatever the buzzword is that we're using. We're just going to call it the old way, to take away all the stigma, to take away all of the heaviness around it. We're going to call it the old way. So, right, so with this system, the old system was finely attuned for optimizing workers and breeding competition, right? So essentially, the way that things were set up, it set humans up to be workers for productivity, right? So instead of us being human beings with intrinsic value and spiritual beings that have light and all these really beautiful higher-minded ideals, we were set up as workers. That's why most of the time when people, when we're calling for tarot, when we're asking for a question, when we're in the worst parts of our lives and we're really trying to figure out what's going on, we ask about work and we will ask about love. And most of the time, what I'm finding is that love has something to do with work, or it's somehow connected or entangled with that. Sometimes relationships have a lot to do with status as well. And so those are the two things that we worry about the most, because that's where we've been taught to gain or to maintain our value, right? So humans in and of themselves were considered work units. Like your body, your person can produce this much. That is your value to society, essentially, right? And so we set it up so that the purpose of human life is to produce for society itself. We call it the system, whatever you want to call it, but we were set up to produce for the system. So this is why, if we value our lives at all, if we have any real understanding of who we are as people, we measure it in terms of money and achievement, right? And you'll hear people complain about that all the time. They go to a networking party and they're like, everybody's like, first thing, what do you do? Like in a business context, it makes some sense. But if you're going out with friends, if you're hanging out, that shouldn't be the first question somebody asks you. But what we're doing at that point is kind of measuring how much respect we ought to give the person that we're talking to, essentially, right? This is important. So in those old values, you'll see things that's what we're kind of going through now, why there's so much confusion and disillusion, because we're kind of taking it away, or we're saying we don't want it anymore. But some of the confusion is that we don't know what we were in. We weren't understanding that we were actually in some kind of a construct in a way, and what it was. So in this example, we're talking about encouraging units of work. So the old values would basically encourage you to work and at the same time provoke competition. An example of that, so like, how women are shamed into having kids. It's like, hey, if you don't have kids, you're not really doing what you're supposed to do as a woman. But at the same time, we're not supported in caring for them, right? It's like, also, yes, you need to go to college, you need to get a higher education, but we're not going to pay for it, right? So it's like, you need to do all of these things. We're going to provoke you. We're going to encourage you. We're going to almost force you to do these things so that you provide value to the system, let's say. But to continue competition in the thing, we're not going to provide what you need to get that thing done, or to provide, or give into society, essentially. Whatever you give to society is on your own dime, on your own time, and your own energy, because we don't want to promote togetherness, essentially. We're trying to create competition so that people can climb to the top. It's sort of like, it's that was the way that we sustained ourselves, basically, through competition. And again, here it is. You have to be mentally and physically healthy, but you are responsible for paying for that and finding the time. Yes, you need to be a leader, but failure to comply will lead to cancellation, right? So we go through this whole thing with cancel culture. We want leaders, we want people to speak out. We need our celebrities, we need our thought leaders, but the moment they say something we don't like, it's cancel time, right? Because what we don't understand about ourselves is that we are competing in that system. And when we see an opportunity to take somebody out of that system to compete so that we don't have to compete with them anymore, we will take it. That's what cancel culture is all about. It's too many people in the system trying to compete. And so once there are too many people in the system trying to compete, we look for ways to take each other out, right? In order to need you, even with this last example, right? In order to prove you're credit worthy, you need to get a credit card, but you're punished for using cash, right? So there's just some examples to kind of help you understand the background of the landscape for how we make decisions about ourselves and about our lives, right? So hit me if you have any questions about that, but that's pretty much how it works. So that being said, we're only worth what we can produce. That's what we think. That's our programming. I'm only worth what I can produce. And so because of this idea of production, because of this like very industrial, like, widget, make widget, or make thing be valuable, make thing be valuable, we needed to predict our level of production in order to prove our value, right? So if we can't predict our production, then we can't predict our worth. If I don't know how many units I can produce in an XYZ amount of time, then I can't tell my employer I need $90,000 or whatever that might be. And this is even spilling over into relationships, right? It's like if I can't, if I can't prove my status or my units of work in this particular relationship. For women, that's children, cooking, cleaning, housekeeping, whatever, and working outside of the home. For men, that's traditionally been and still is, providing and protection, right? So being the breadwinner, more money than the woman, and protecting the household, that's the value of a man. Practically something like an ATM in the security system. The value of a woman is something like a baby producer and a housekeeper, right? Like this is the very basic, crude way that we've put this together. So when we can't predict our production, we're going to not like change. So it's like, if I have to be able to tell you what my value is by what I'm putting out there, and I can't do that because some change outside of me happens, or some change in my relationship happens, or some change in whatever happens, it frightens me. And so because of that, we don't like change. And we're also very averse to the truth, right? Like truth tends to bring change. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's quote unquote bad. And we think that it's bad because it's changing the course of our action. And if it changes the course of our action, again, we can't predict that level of productivity. We can't predict our value. We can't predict our worth. And so that's kind of what's going on in the background of our heads in terms of, our decision-making processes. And so Julia says, lack of production makes us feel emotionally important. Yes, exactly. It makes us feel less important emotionally. And what I'm trying to get to in this is helping others find a way so that your production isn't what makes you feel important. Okay, so our training is to work, produce, and to hold on to at all costs, right? We just talked about that. You work, you produce, you hold on. Oh, I gotta find this job. And then when you get the job, then you're like competing with the other people, and then you're like looking over your shoulder every third time to like make sure that the boss sees that you're worth a promotion and all of this kind of thing. There's just a lot going on all the time. And so, because we're doing that, we're holding on. If new information comes in, and I've seen this even when I worked for a long time doing change management type of things for nonprofits and institutions, organizations like that. And even just the change in the computers you're using, right? Changing the software, the change in the process. Well, we're going to go from, using, I don't know, Macs to Dells or whatever it is. People freak the hell out. And a lot of psychologists and people like that, we'll look at it and say, oh, it's because, the limbic system, the reptilian brain wants to, continue the trajectory of the course and all of that. And that's true. But I think a lot of that has to do with the way that we've been trained, because if you change how I work, then I, again, can't predict how valuable I'm going to be here, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to learn this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be as productive or as, let's say, oh shit, some people as lazy as I was before y'all came in. This new shit. I know exactly how many units of work I can produce in a day and eat my chicken at my desk with this old system. If y'all bring in some new stuff, I don't know what's going to happen, right? So that's the thing. And so we've been conditioned to use fake instincts for a sense of survival, right? So if we're saying that our value or our worth is based on how much we can produce, then all of our survival is shifted away from supporting ourselves spiritually, supporting ourselves even physically, right? All of our natural instincts to use whatever genius we might have, whatever our essence is, all of that stuff is completely leveled, right? So your internal natural navigation system is completely jacked. So that's important to remember. Okay, we talked a little bit about this last week, but it's a much different perspective. Coach KJ, yes, shifting our values when it comes from helps us, oh, stay flexible during a time. Yes, exactly, that's where we're going. So to balance ourselves, we have to reclaim our instincts, our natural instincts and inner stability, right? Your natural instincts, most people will have you believe, especially in the West, that our natural instincts is in times of struggle and survival to go out and stab the next guy in the throat, or do like we did in the pandemic and go hoard all the toilet paper. That's not actually natural to human beings. If we were living in a more community-based society, it would be something like more of a discussion about, okay, well, how are we going to do this? It would be a team effort and not like a run on Charmin. That's not natural. That's something that's been created by the society that we're living in, right? So the new values for centered living is to use your natural instincts. Now, when I'm talking about natural instincts, some of it is some more egalitarian idea for sure, that's happening. But some of it is also your own, we talk about this a lot, your own genius, your own thing, your own pizzazz, right? Your thing. When I was growing up, I was actually very quiet and very reserved, and I didn't say a lot. And, you know, if you grew up in a Black household, that's a problem. And in a Black community, because it's like, no, you need to go out there, you need to open your mouth, you need to say something, you need to, right? Because for a lot of Black people, people of color in general, it's about survival. Again, artificial environment, right? Survival. And so the way that I used to roll was like, I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm gonna just sit back. And as I got older, to compete, to survive, to do whatever, I started getting the way that my mothers and aunties would tell me to be. Girl, you need to go out there, you need to get your da-da-da. And I got myself into the most real world freaking trouble, like trying to be that person. Like, I'm gonna go let this girl know, I'm gonna go tell her whatever. And it's like, that's not even how I roll. When the genius of who I used to be, to sit back, observe, okay, I see you, it's cool, hey, how you doing? You know, that actually kept me out of a lot of trouble very early on. And I learned a lot more, and I was able to see other people's experiences and take on those experiences from far away without having to participate in them, right? You learn life lessons through other people's mistakes because you didn't open your mouth to get involved in them in the first place, right? You're back here. And so like those kinds of natural instincts, how you're naturally made is how you should be moving and making decisions and deciding what's good for you and what's bad for you and so on. So doing that will take you into the flow for the sake of your self-fulfillment and for your community's needs, right? So if you're focused more so on yourself than your family and then the larger community around you, you're providing value to those people how you would provide value to them from your natural self, whatever that might be, right? Maybe you make money off of it, maybe you don't. Maybe you're a good mother, maybe you're a good father, you know, maybe you're a good stay-at-home father, right? Like that's where your value is, and you're like, I'm gonna do this because this is what fulfills me. This is what fulfills the needs of my family, my community, and that's how I'm gonna roll, regardless of what outside society might be pressuring me to produce or do, right? So that's one of those things that you have to like really pay attention to, is why you're making the decision in the first place. Again, breathe in and out with the changes that come in, and operate with constraints and not against them, because we're so afraid of not being able to, again, predict our value or predict our worth. What we will do is constraints come in, things happen, and we're like, this is kind of what's going on with the pandemic stuff. It's like, oh my God, I got to do this. And you want to do something that's against the flow of things. Like the majority of people and whatever are moving in this way, but because your life is over here, you reject what's happening over here, or you try to tweak and retool or whatever. And I think that when you're doing that, you're just creating more stress for yourself. When if you just look at the constraints and you look at the way things are moving, you say, okay, I see where things are going. Generally, I want my life to look and feel like this. So I'm going to move within these constraints. I'm going to try to see what I can do. It's bumper bowling, right? And not like in somebody else's lane, okay? And so getting comfortable doing that gets us comfortable with the truth, right? And this is taking it up here to taking it like down to the individual level. Getting comfortable with that really helps us recognize it faster and work toward more personal peace and stability. So if you're doing your thing, right, and you start making these really big decisions based on how you feel, your needs, your fulfillment, your family and your community's fulfillment, when you start to do that, you'll start to recognize even the smallest bits of bullshit a lot faster. It gets quick. Like, it's taken me this many years to do that, but now I have like a spidey, I have a dog sense. I can smell it coming around the corner, like, nope. And if I'm in myself, if I'm in my body, if I'm doing what I know I need to do, if I'm in relationship with all those parts of myself, it's super easy, right? And I don't have to worry about getting myself involved in something, because a lot of times we'll get ourselves involved in bad relationships or bad work stuff or whatever we do, simply because we're making decisions based off those old values, that old system stuff. And so Julia says, getting down and dirty with the truth when it comes to one's, yes, exactly. Yeah, and I really like this idea of like self-checking your movements. Do that, and making sure that the way that you're self-checking is like, it's constant, what they call shadow work. It's like, now, do I really like this dude because he's nice, or do I really like this dude because his ass looks really tight in his pants, right? It's like, be honest with yourself. Now, if it's some of both, it's some of both, you know? If it's one or the other, that's fine, but just know why you're getting yourself into something, so that if something comes up down the road, you can kind of backtrack, you know where you're coming from. So that's really important. And so with these new values, we're going to look at encouraging your essential truth, like what's true for you, right? Not in that airy theory, ignore facts kind of way. I'm not talking about that, but your essential, like real truth. So if you're saying, I want a lover who is dependable, right? You will connect with those who display dependability, right? Like who actually, well, you know, like, I don't remember what that song is. I think it was Robert Glasper and Jill Scott. You know, he always answers my call when I call. You know, not say that he picks up the phone every damn time you call or text or whatever, but when it matters, right, there's somebody there to pick up the phone, this person that you want to be dependable, right? If you want a life of peace, it's the same thing. If you want a life of peace, then I will cut all unnecessary distress. And what I'm finding with a lot of people, even in the way that we do things now, it's like, we look at the material things and we're like, oh, I want this kind of car and this kind of house and this kind of da 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 da. And that's fine. It's actually okay. But sometimes I think that we're substituting what we really want, which is peace or stability. And we're taking those things and materializing them because we don't have the language to say, I want stability or I want peace, and not understanding that stability or peace can come without having his and hers Bentley in the garage, let's say, I don't know. But that kind of thing can happen without the material things at that level, right? So that's the essential truth. Essentially, you want stability, and essentially you want peace, but that doesn't have to come the way that you're trying to force it to come into being, right? I know, like, this was like me telling on myself, right? Like, I have a weakness for people who need me. And so what I would do is, like, you know, play the rescuer, like jump in, like, no, I'm going to save you. Cause I don't, you know, it was like, I would watch other people who needed to be saved, let's say, and think, and like almost see myself, like, no, like, I'm going to get this person, you know, kind of thing. So I had a weakness for people who needed me. But now that I know that, it's more like, instead of just jumping in and saving somebody, I'm going to maximize my energy for myself. So it doesn't mean I'm not going to help this other person, but it just means that, you know, if I go grab the rope, they're going to have to pull themselves up. I'm not going to get down in the ditch, have you climb on my back, and then like struggle up the cliff with your ass hanging on my neck. That's not, you know, that's unhealthy behavior. And so yes, help, but don't be, you know, constantly trying to do it all. Don't take on somebody else's life lessons for yourself, essentially, right? Another essential truth is, I want a job that's fulfilling, let's say. Great. So you reject jobs that rob you of that fulfillment. And this is another bit of truth. If you're sitting at work and deep down, you're pretty sure you're gonna like slam the computer into the wall as soon as you arrive to work, it's a truth that you need to recognize for yourself and say, you know what, this isn't working. And instead of trying to rationalize it, well, I got to do this and I got to make the payments and I got to do this and I got to do that, you ask yourself, okay, well, what can I do before leaving this job for something that is more fulfilling to honor that fact? I don't really like this job. Can I cut my hours? Can I move in with somebody? Right? That's another thing. Can somebody move in with me? Can I do a side hustle or whatever until I can move, whatever that is? But don't sit in a place that is unfulfilling for longer than you need to, because you don't need to. You don't have to. There's no reason to do that anymore, right? Now, some people might have, you have different life situations, and I get that. But recognizing the truth, even while you're in that very difficult situation, will save you a world of trouble. Because if you don't, what will happen is, say you're in that job and it's unfulfilling, but you don't recognize that it's unfulfilling or you don't acknowledge it. The boss comes to you and says, hey, I have a promotion for you. And it comes with extra money. And you take it. And now you're in deeper, than where you were before. And so recognizing and honoring it and doing something about it is the best way to prevent yourself from going years and years and years down the road without fulfillment and then getting smacked in the face later on when all that has to be corrected. So last example, I want giving friendships. Now watch this. I want giving friendships. I want a situation where people give to me as much as I give to them. If you want giving friendships, you have to put yourself in a position to receive. I once had a client, I don't remember exactly what all the circumstances were around her situation, but it was something like the message was something like, when you meet this person, don't do anything for them. It was like one of the only times I think I've ever gotten a message like that. And now I realized kind of why that had come through. And it was because she would immediately go into situations with a friendship, relationships, whatever, and immediately start doing like, oh, I know she needs a haircut. I have a friend who does this and I can do this. And she's like immediately in the relationship trying to prove her worth. Like, look what I can do. Well, the other person, let's just say that they are even a giving person. It's like, well, shit, if you're gonna do all of this, cool. It's just like, why would that other person jump in to show you what they can give? You're not actually providing a space for them to do that. And so, watching how you're interacting with people when it comes to whatever weakness you might have is really super important, right? So overall, like, you don't have to hold on to some untruth to maintain your sanity, right? Like, you don't have to. You can easily recognize the truth when it's there if you build a life that can accommodate it. Don't build your life in these really tight spaces. You got to do exactly this, and you got to have exactly that, and you got to have this many kids by this time, or you don't want any by this time, and you have to travel to this many places. Don't build your life with so many constraints, because there are going to be constraints outside of you that come anyway. And so you want to allow enough fluidity in that space in order for that change to come in, move things that don't need to come out, and come back in, right? So it's like this flow, like cells. They accept stuff, they secrete stuff, they bring in stuff, they bring, let it go. So if you can build your life in that way, you can allow new information to come in, because there is little to no cost in making that change, right? Now I will tell you, we've been talking about that a lot around here, my partner and I, and it's very challenging for me to not be in a situation where I'm like, we have to do this and we have to get married and da 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 da. It's like, yeah, that's a way to do it, but that's kind of the old way. The new way is like, okay, look, this is where you are, this is where I am, and we're willing to grow together, right? We're willing to give each other enough space to do things. I mean, most of us operate in relationships where we're like right on top of each other. And, and I remember even early on, even when I was married, I would travel a lot. Like, I would just get up and be like, well, it's about time for me to go to Singapore. And my parents would freak the hell out. Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't go travel by yourself without your husband. I'm like, yeah, I can. Because I am my own person and he is his own person. there's no reason for us to be right on top of each other all the time, because we're going to grow and change as people. And so you have to be in relationships where you allow the other person to do that. People are going to turn into 5, 6, 50, 11 different people before they die. So the fewer of those changes that you allow to happen in the relationship, the less stable the relationship actually is. Because as that person is changing, if you're like, tight and holding on, like, no, you have to do it like this, you have to do it like that, it's more likely going to end because the boundaries are too tight, right? So set your life up so that it's a lot more fluid. So that being said, you must build a life that is more flexible and accommodating to change. That's pretty much it. Hey, Rat, how you doing? Oh, I see everybody. Jimmy. Okay, cool. Hey, y'all. So really, really looking into that. Think about, and I put a worksheet up on, there's a link in my bio if you're on Instagram, and there is going to be a link on Facegram. Yes, Facegram. There's going to be a link on Facebook when I get the chance. But essentially, if you just go to Ava St. Clair, go to Sundays, it has all the worksheets and the questions that come from Sunday lectures. So just, sitting down and asking yourself, well, hell, like how have I created too many constraints in my life? Where am I holding on where I don't need to hold on? Where am I holding on because I'm part of this system? And, my last story for my holding on is something like, especially around children. I mean, I'm 30, how old am I? 37. I do that every year. I'm 37, but I got to this point where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to have kids. I don't know if I want to have kids. I don't know. But some of that question changed when I thought to myself, if you didn't have parents, if you didn't have society, if you didn't what would you do? And that's like most of the question on the worksheets, but that's most of the question for living this very fluid and flexible life. If nobody had boo to say about it, and you didn't have anything to concern yourself with outside of yourself, what would you do? And typically, there's your truth, there's your answer, right? So, that's it, right? Staying flexible. I didn't bring up my main deck of cards, but we'll talk a little bit about the Wheel of Fortune. I probably have to go hunt around for a picture of it. But essentially, the Wheel of Fortune, we'll just call it what it is. As life is changing, things are moving around and around, and they're going around and around. Sometimes you get this card in tarot and it's like upside down. And typically I'll read that as something like either a delay in something that you deserve. Now, sometimes that delay in something that you deserve can be like a negative karma, honestly. But sometimes that delay can be something really cool, like a job or a relationship or something like this, that's like, it's something fun and exciting, but you can't see it and you can't move into it because you're holding on too tightly to what you have, right? And so you're holding on to the spoke in the wheel and you're like riding the thing, and it goes up, then it goes down, and you're like, oh my God, it's going down. Oh my God, you're freaking the hell out. And it's going down. If you can figure out how to run on top of that sucker, like a cartoon, run on top of the wheel. Don't let it flip you. Run on top of the thing so that you have a much easier time, right? Even when things are challenging, even when things are difficult for you emotionally or spiritually, taking it with a spoon of sugar and a glass of wine and some good friends, right? There are going to be times when you can't avoid it. You can't avoid suffering in life. It's what it is, it's what we do. But instead of anticipating it and clenching up and whatever, going through it with grace, going through it with ease, going through it with as much joy as you can possibly muster, so that you're riding with it and you're moving with it, and you're not making decisions that put you in a worse situation because you're trying to prevent that suffering from happening. So there's that. I'll keep this up. Let me see if I can get into, hey, we can stop the share. So I don't know if y'all have any questions. I'm not seeing any questions on Instagram just yet. But what I will do is I will get to the tarot, because this is some tarot. Like I said, we're using Manzel B. Excuse me. And I'll just see if there's any last words that come through. Now, if y'all have any personal questions on Instagram or on Facebook, then just pop them in the chat box and we'll do like a quick read. Other than that, I'm going to see what comes up to see if I missed anything, if any holes need to be filled. We'll use Priestess of the Light first. And I love these cards. These are beautiful cards. I remember when I was growing up, I had like dolls and stuffed animals, which I think everybody does, right? Like you talk to them and you're like, oh, and you know that they have feelings, and you're like, I have to put this doll over here because he wants to be by the door or whatever. And the more that I'm going on this journey, the more I realize like there's a lot to that, especially if you're doing any kind of spell work, if you're into any kind of traditional or earth-based craft. It's a thing. And I've learned that about my decks. Some of my decks get tired. They have personalities. They get weird. They get cheeky. I had a reading the other day where some cards showed up like, and like that was the vibe. Like, what does this mean? So yeah, Khaleesi, can you pull up a card for me? Interview. Okay, let's see what's up, baby. Let's see what we have here. Whoa. Here's your fulfillment. Khaleesi, this is quite wonderful. And so this feels like to me, and because this didn't come out alone, this feels like also a message that it's going to be a little bit of time here. Typically, swords will move very quickly, but in your case, because this is a Four of Swords and this is very rested vibe, it feels more like I said, it's going to be a little bit of time. The other message here is to make sure that you don't go in there guns blazing, right? Like you want to be excited and you want to be, you know, upbeat and all of that. But you also want to make sure that how you're delivering what your value is, right? When you're talking about it, you're doing it in a way where you're offering it, right? So when you sit down and you're talking to them and you're like, hey, this is what I can do. They're like, yeah, I'd love to do that for you. I'd love to do this for you. I think I'd be really great at blah, 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 blah. Instead of saying, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I can, you know what I mean? Because you can, obviously. But you want whatever it is you're offering to feel like an offer. And a little less like, you know, again, you just sort of rattling off what you can do, which is good, but I really, really like this. Are you going to get the job necessarily? This isn't what they're telling me. It doesn't look like that. That's the message right off that they're giving me. But what I would say is that it's a really good prospect. We'll keep it there. I'm good like that. So yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Questions. All right, so we're gonna keep it moving. Keep it moving. All right, let's see what else comes up. Such a sunny Sunday, and I felt like putting on lipstick today. So I'm gonna get, oh gosh, riding that wheel. Ride the wheel, y'all. Don't hold on, but ride it. Yeah. Nine of Wands, the Star, and the Five of Wands. This is beautiful. So I'll show you the spread down on 3. Yes, this keeps coming up, you guys. Do it with other people. I don't know how I feel like we're going to get over there eventually, and we're trying to. There also seems to be astrologically or something in the meta, not Facebook meta, but something in the meta where it's a buddy system. Like I'm seeing more soulmate things happening. I called it a couple of years back, the soulmate shuffle. People were moving like from one relationship right into the next. Like, okay, you're done here. You're good. You learned the lesson. You're done with this karmic, and then like right into this next thing. And I feel like that's for purpose. I don't think that that's an accident. And I don't think that that's, you know, happening to just a couple people here and there. That's a real thing. It's also happening in friendships as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be lovers. It's definitely happening in friendships. So doing this together. We also need to, in healing our relationship with the truth and not necessarily looking at the truth as something awful and awkward and stuff all the time, you also need to look at it like this. Healing your relationship with struggle, perseverance. Lord, I got to get in here and I got to do this job. Lord, I got to get in here and I got to teach this man. I got to teach this woman. No, you don't. It doesn't require all of that. We're so accustomed to it. We are so used to this. We don't, perseverance and moving through something doesn't have to mean gritting your teeth and hunching your shoulders. It just means getting through it, moving through it. And even with this Five of Wands, there's a lot of internal conflict. And a lot of this comes from this internal conflict, the struggles, like, because you haven't made up your mind yet about what that essential personal truth is, you know, really making sure that you understand, if I want a life of peace, then I can let go of unnecessary distress, right? Instead of saying, I want a life of peace, but I have to hold on to this, whatever this thing is. No, you don't. Just be done with it. Let it go. With this Queen of Pentacles coming up under the Two of Cups especially, what I'm liking about this, and what I've been telling people a lot, this year does certainly feel like a year of Cups and Pentacles, mostly because, not even just because of money, but Pentacles is also about like your time, your routines. Is exactly what we're talking about, like how you structure your life, the lifestyle you want to live. And I don't mean like, you know, just material lifestyle, but I mean, you know, what's your flow like? How do you move through your day? How do you move through the weeks and the month and da, 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 da. Like, how do you move through that? And how do you do it with other people? And what do you give while you're doing it? That is what this Queen here is about. And so when you're structuring your life, doing it in a way that you're not creating unnecessary struggle for yourself, doing it in a way where you have room for other people in that as well. And doing it where there is room for love, where there is room for lightness, where there is room for flow. So that seems to be a message here. And that Five of Wands being a card of journey in Manzel's deck, this is really gorgeous, because the Five of Wands doesn't have to be conflict. It can also be, you know, adventure. It can be fun. It can be finding new ideas and like sort of grappling with those and integrating the ones that you like and tossing out the ones that you don't, right? So I love this stuff. Looking for your sacred purpose. Ancestral legacy, we're going to talk a lot about this year, especially this month. I've got a lot of stuff for love and relationships coming up for this month. When you're talking about that ancestral legacy, we're going to start to, I would suggest, very late this year, early fall, start to see a lot of ourselves through our lineage, through our DNA, and it's going to become more apparent about why we're here from that familial or ancestral perspective. And it's going to throw a lot of people off because some of that ancestral perspective might be soul DNA. It's not going to look the way that we think it is. So you're going to see a lot more. I mean, we're already doing it anyway, but you're going to see way more very out there Black Wiccans. You're going to see way more very out there white voodoo and like Ifa priests and priestesses, people that don't look the way that you think they should in order to participate in a certain tradition or to be in a certain place. You see a lot of artists doing accounting and a lot of accountants doing, you know, cosmology. It's going to get wild because that's going to start coming through because we're allowing it to happen. So that's one thing. Soul radiance. This is going along with that sacred purpose, that soul radiance that we were talking about in terms of that genius, that light, letting it come through, let it do its thing. Take the old system and the old rules and toss it out somewhere. You know, not every damn thing. You need some of it. Don't toss out everything. But the things that cause you a lot of constraints and stress and challenge that aren't real and aren't necessary, setting them aside so that who you are can shine through. So yeah. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. So I don't know if any of y'all, I'm going to check here, see if anybody else has any questions. Hey to everybody who's joining me on Instagram. I really appreciate y'all. Hey to everyone who has joined me on Facebook. I appreciate y'all so much. It's like really cool. You know, like I say, I'm going to do this every Sunday. So it's nice to have really good company and really good energy. I love seeing everybody so much when it comes to Sundays. So if that be all, if there be no more questions, that's it. If you all would like to book a reading, you certainly are welcome to do so. avastclair.com, book now. If you'd like to make a donation, there is a link on my website. There'll also be a link in the chats on both sides. And let me see what else. Oh, the Love Project is coming up. So that's going to be this week if I get to it fast enough. The Love Project was going to debut. So that'll be a virtual event about love and relationships for 3 days. So that's love and relationships in family context, in the romantic context, and in work context. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're also, there's going to be another program for people who want to go deep into like your astrology and your destiny and all of that. That's going to be coming up very, very shortly here. So I'm looking forward to providing that for everybody. And I can't wait to see y'all again next Sunday. I'm going to close us out with a quick prayer. Let that energy soak in because it feels so good. It feels sunny. Okay. Holy Spirit, God's guides, ancestors, and guardian angels, thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to thank your guides and my guides for imparting the wisdom that we need to hear this morning. And I hope that we can learn soon enough how to be as one and work together as one in love and in deep wisdom. Ashe. Thank y'all so much for joining me. That's me, Ava St. Clair, for your Sunday session. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.